We are from the last group, and we're going to present about moral and social cognition. So for today's presenters, there are Amirun, Nadira, and me, Sabita. So let's start with the presentation.
So the firstly is what is a social cognition? Social cognition means a cognitive process related to the perception, understanding, and implementation of linguistic, auditory, visual, and physical cues that communicate emotional, and interpersonal information. In other words, it means how people deal with the information include the four stages, which is encoding, storage, retrieval, and processing. Social cognition also is a subtopic of social psychology that focuses on how people process, store, and apply information about the others people and the social situation. The social cognition also focuses on the role that cognitive process play in our social interaction. The way we think about the others play a major role in our think, feel, and interact with the world around us. Okay, next slide. Social cognition involve a three part. Firstly, the process involve perceiving others people and how we come to know about the people in the world around us. Second, the study of the mental process that are involved in understanding, remembering, thinking about, and observing to the other people in our social world. The third is the reason people to get certain information about the social world, how this information is stored in the memory and how it is then used to the interact with other people. Next slide.
Okay, so now I'm going to explain about cognitive development. So, cognitive development is the development of children's knowledge, skills, and problem solving and dispositions or characters. So, in the first 5 years of life, children experience growth spurt, where their brain and physical appearance develop rapidly. However, it is important to remember that the children's behavior changes gradually, not abruptly or nor suddenly. So everything has their own timeline. That's why they develop in different rates, in different domains, which means they grow quality that would depends on each children's circumstances. Also, different children would develop in different ways as a result from the influence of the environment. Jean Piaget developed the four stages of cognitive development. These stages of cognitive development explain about how do children develop their intellectual skills, what are children capable of learning at various stages of their life, and stuff like that. So the first stage is called sensory motor stage, from birth to 2 years old. In this stage, children learn through their senses like touch, taste, hearing, sight, and smell, and they learn through manipulation of objects. The second stage is called pre-operational stage, from 2 to 7 years old. So in this stage, children develop memory and imagination and understand things symbolically. So during this period, children would encounter various new experiences, objects, and words. By means, their skills in language and imitating adults has increased rapidly. The next stage is called concrete operational stage from 7 to 11 years old, where the children has become more aware of external events and their own feelings. During this period, children are able to think concretely, by means they are able to relate things to the reality, to their experiences instead of using their imagination. Moreover, children on this stage have learned and understand that every person has their own thinking, feelings, and desires. And the last stage is called formal operational stage, which is above 11 years old. In this stage, children are able to use logic, see the world around, and plan their own future. If in the previous stage they think concretely based on their experiences, adolescents in this stage would think abstractly and deductively, as in this stage their brain along with the cognitive are already maturing, so they are able to think critically, flexibly, and use reasonings. So for example, in the sensory motor stage, babies have a reflex on putting objects to their mouth or staring at an object on their hands without thinking about complex things. And in the pre-operational stage, the toddler use symbols to identify things, such as use the word meow to represent a cat, or when playing, they use a broom to represent horse. And in the concrete operational stage, children begin to understand that not everyone has the same thoughts, beliefs, or feelings. They are able to classify things into groups. When they see a classmate in difficulty, they have the initiative to help. And lastly, in the formal operational stage, adolescents have matured where they could think flexibly and more complex. Hence, they are able to solve complex math problems or give suggestions and critiques. Uh, in spite of that, during the pre-operational stage, children have some cognitive limitations as they are still learning how to use language and how to think the world symbolically. That is why when you ask children questions, they would most likely to answer it intuitively or answering questions based on their instincts, not the real fact. So the cognitive limitations here is defined by limited skills related to thinking, planning, decision making, and coping. So the cognitive limitations on children includes pretend play, egocentrism, centration, lack of conservation, and pre-causal thinking. So the first one is pretend play. Pretending a play is playing as if, by means creating a situation that is different from the reality, like playing doctors and nurses or imagining a bear as a baby, and etc. Thus, this pretend play is good for developing children's thinking skills because to pretend a play, children have to understand what is happening in their play, and it helps the brain to think about schemas how will the story goes, which eventually leads to a more complex thinking skills. The second one is called egocentrism, which means the inability to distinguish their own point of view and others' point of view. So here I will show you a video about it.
Can you tell me what you see when you look at that from where you're sitting?
Can you guys hear the voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you see when you look at that from where you're sitting? What are some of the things that you see?
A cat,
A cat.
a tree, and a phone.
Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. Can you tell me what you see when you look at it from that stool? An owl.
Okay.
What is that?
A goat.
A goat. Okay, is there anything else you see? Right there, what is that?
A tree.
A tree.
And
Another little tree. Right. And can you tell me what I see when I look at this from where I'm sitting right here? Okay.
So based on the video, you can see that the child will think that the other person has the same thought and point of view as them. And the third is called centration, which means focusing on one characteristic or dimension while disregarding the others. And the last one is the lack of conservation or awareness of conservation, where they don't understand that physical properties remains constant even if the appearance and form change. So, for example, you can see here, wait, that there are two identical glasses with the same volume of water. Then, in the next step, one of the glass is changed into a slimmer and taller one, which results in one taller glass and one shorter glass. However, thus moving it to a taller container would make the volume more than the shorter one. Anyone? Okay, so since the children has cognitive limitation, the centration here means that the child will focus on one thing only, which is the taller glass that has more water in it, without thinking the shorter glass. While the lack of conservation here means that the children don't understand that although it has been moved to a taller glass, the volume of the water doesn't change at all. So they don't understand that, and instead they would think that the taller glass would have more water than the shorter one. And the last one is pre-causal thinking. Actually, this is a branch of egocentrism where children would use their own beliefs and thinking to explain cause and effect relationship. So pre-causal thinking is categorized by transductive reasoning, where the child fails to understand the real cause and effect situation. So it is when a child draws connection between two unrelated things. So for example, the first one is called animism, which is the belief of non-living things are actually alive. For example, the stars in the sky twinkles because they are happy. Or when the child fall down from a stair and they would consider the stair to be mad at her to make her fall. And the second one is artificialism, is the belief of environmental characteristics can be attributed because of human actions or interventions. For example, the rain is pouring because there is someone who pours water from the sky. Okay, so now I will move on to the theory of mind. Theory of mind is understanding the experiences, values, and feelings and intentions of others, which can be used to predict and interpret the behavior of others. This skill is typically developed at the age of 3 to 5 years old. So we will now watch a video about false belief
Hey,
task.
in this video we will talk about Salian test and theory of mind. Salian test is a frequently used test to measure theory of mind. This is the test setup. We have two dolls named Sally and Anne. Sally has a basket and Anne has a box. Sally places a ball in her basket and then leaves the room to go for a walk. While she's gone, Anne takes the ball and puts it in her own box. After a while, Sally returns. So here's the question. Where is Sally gonna look for her ball? If your answer is basket, congrats, you just passed the theory of mind test. But as you can imagine, 3-year-old might think Sally would look in the box because that's where the ball is. A toddler's thought process is, if I know where the ball is, everybody knows where the ball is. Theory of mind is an important social cognitive skill. It involves the ability to think about mental states, not just knowledge, but also emotions, desires, and beliefs.
Okay, so a false belief task. So a false belief task is an experiment to measure a child's theory of mind. So researchers conduct. So false belief task is about understanding that a person's beliefs may be different from our own beliefs. So for example, here you can see that there's a little girl with a brain at box. Then she was asked what is inside the box by the adult. So she would most likely to give the obvious response, which is band-aid. Then The box was open. Turns out there's a pig doll inside the box. The adult then said, "There's a pig in this box," and then closed the box again. The adult continued, "Your friend, Peter, doesn't know that there's a pig in this box. If Peter is here, what would he answer about what is inside this box? Band-Aid or pig?" So, children who have developed theory of mind would answer Band-Aid, and those who haven't developed it would answer pig. Those who have developed the theory of mind would understand that Peter has different understanding than them, because Peter hasn't seen what is inside the box. And those who haven't developed a theory of mind would mistakenly think that Peter has the same belief as them. So, a successful false belief task demonstrates an understanding of an idea that people's relationships to the world is mediated by their mental representation of it. So children who pass the task understand that the world is represented in mind and people act based on their mental representation, even when this is a misrepresentation of the actual situation in the world. So what is mental representation? Mental representation consists of our mental status, such as beliefs and desires, that represent our behavior in the world. Thus, a person can hold different attitudes to the same proportional content. So, in simpler words, our belief and desires would drive us to act certain behavior. People behave to satisfy their wishes in the light of their values or what they believe in. This is why false belief would lead to misconduct behavior. If the belief and desire of an individual is understood, one may predict how the person will behave. So, if the desire of someone is known, a misguided action can be explained by attributing a false belief to the person. So, if we know that the bad intentions of others, we could prove that their misconduct action by applying a false belief to the person. So, if someone desires something, they may form an intention to obtain it, which causes them to act in a way that will lead to fulfillment of the desire.
So the the theory of mind can develop by the strategy. The strategy to help a child develop is pretend to play, read a book or storytelling, and the last one, play hide and seek. Uh, pretend to play is a great way to give child exposure about a mental state that will help the children develop the theory of mind skill. For example, pretends playing with a doll or puppet. It will give a chance to play out the conversation between child and their parents. That might happen in different scenario. When using the meta state word, we are giving child the opportunity to explore their meaning and practice using them, because in a theory of mind, everyone can have their own thought, feeling, and belief. They are different from our or others people. And the second is read a book or storytelling. With a child is a wonderful opportunity to utilize mental state word and help our child to gain a understanding of them. For example, why the parent reading a book could he can take a few minutes to stop and talk about the what child think about the character in the story, might which might be different from what the character end up doing, and talk about how the character might feel and why they might have those feelings. By doing this thing with the child, it will show the different thought, belief, and action, and the result in different outcome. And the child thought, belief, and action maybe if a different. from the others. And lastly, the strategy, play hide and seek. We can explain to the child that a seeker must guess where the others player hiding because they do not know where they are hiding and have to try to find them. This will help to highlight to child that will might know thing that others might know and others people might know thing that we might know. Okay, the next slide. Uh, the slide show benefit for the counselor or teacher from this theory. Firstly, as a social interaction and use when analyzing, judging, and evaluating others' behavior. For example, a teacher can communicate and then can understand why his student do something. It's because they have a different thought in themselves and the theory of mind alone the people to draw conclusion about the attention of others, as well as to think about what is going on in the mind of the children of others. Creating hope, fear, belief, and purpose. The second benefit is able to access the level of individual ability for empathy. For empathy. For example, as a counselor can feel a person feeling by placing himself as the person who experienced it in the certain situation. This social interaction can avoid misunderstanding and can make it better relationship. Okay, the last one is understand that the thought and belief of others are different from the us. Is being able to respond to social situation better. For example, situation counselor are able to understand and accept the opinion of others. Well, because they know everyone will have the different thought. Because we will to able develop the right idea of what others think and we will better respond accurately. Next slide. So the theory of mind in Islamic perspective. Rasulullah say a person get priority in this world with his intellect. Is me a thinking and also purity in the hereafter with his intellect because a person does good deed according to his intellect. Okay, so I will give to next presenter.
Yeah, I will explain and discuss about the metacognition, how to do what part of the thing. Next, John Flavel. John Flavel is the one who invented this theory, which is metacognition. The term metacognition was introduced in the early 1970s based on the term meta-memory. The term meta-memory previously identified by the same scholar, John Flavel. In 1979, Flavel viewed metacognition as the learner's knowledge of their own cognition. It means that the awareness of one's aware of their own cognition. Next is Flavel defining metacognition as knowledge and cognition about cognitive phenomenon. That thinking about thinking, cognition about cognition, and yes. Next. Thinking about thinking, cognition about cognition, knowing about knowing. This is the terms used, the simple term used to explain about metacognition. The terms of metacognition refers to an individual's awareness of his or her cognitive process and strategies. It is an appreciation of what one already knows, together with a correct of the learning task and what knowledge and skills is required. Metacognition also refers to the one's ability to use prior knowledge to plan strategy for approaching a learning task, take necessary steps, problem solve, reflect on and evaluate results, and also modify one's approach as needed, and combined with the ability to make correct inferences about how to apply one's strategic knowledge to a particular situation and to do so efficiently and reliably, which is the metacognition creates makes a person to planning or evaluate the strategy according to their own knowledge. Okay, next, elements of metacognition. Education is not the learning of facts but training the mind to think. Next, the elements that emphasize on the metacognition. The first is about variable. What the perceived variable is about what one recognizes about his or her strengths and weakness in learning and processing information. The second is about task variable. The different tasks, what one knows or can figure out about the nature of the task and the processing demands required to complete the task. The example is the knowledge that takes more time to comprehend, to understand, and read on the task. Third is strategy variable. The person has their strategy at the ready to apply in a flexible way to successfully accomplish a task. Example is knowing how to activate the prior knowledge before reading a technical article, using glossary, look up unfamiliar words, or recognizing that sometimes one has to repeat the reading and paragraph several times before it makes sense. Instead, a person create his own strategy on how to cope with the task variable. They create their strategies to understand a certain article or certain task. Okay. The distinction of cognition and metacognition. Cognition is mentioned all process that and abilities in which people engage on daily basis such as memory, learning, problem solving, evaluation, reasoning, and decision making. However, metacognition define that as thinking about thinking, which is it allow us to complete a given task well through planning, monitoring, evaluating, and comprehending, making a person more aware of his or her cognitive process. Instead, a person create their own planning and strategies to cope with a different task. Okay, next. Okay, this is the importance of metacognition. Make a human to be a thinker, better thinker, and also a person can learn with a task or certain situation or certain knowledge meaningfully to think flexibly and also make better reasoning and judgment, and also the metacognition gives human the opportunity to question and reflect on their own thinking. Next. Metacognitive knowledge is about awareness of your own thinking process, or also it includes the three different types of metacognitive awareness when considering metacognitive knowledge. The first is the declarative knowledge, which is knowing what you know. It refers to knowledge about oneself and about what factors can influence one's performance or behavior or his thinking. Declarative knowledge also can be referred to as world knowledge. And next is the procedural knowledge, which is not about knowing how to use and what you know. Means that refers to the knowledge about doing things. This type of knowledge is displayed as heuristics and strategies. A high degree of procedural knowledge can allow individuals to perform tasks more automatically. This can achieve through a large variety of strategies that can be assessed most efficiently. The bigger or the widest strategies that a person can be create, the high the high individuals, the high skills or the high skills individuals to perform tasks can be achieved easily. And next is about knowing when and why to use what you know. Knowledge refers to knowing when and why to use declarative and procedural knowledge. It allows students to allocate their resources, their own knowledge when using strategies. This is in turn allow the strategies to become more effective. The conditional support the declarative and procedural of individual to provide well uh, well well it's well decision. Okay. Correlation of metacognition with moral reasoning and moral decision. Moral knowledge, understanding the purpose of a task or situation, the scope and requirement of moral action. Or if a person acquired the high moral knowledge, they tend to have a high moral reasoning. If they have the low meta moral knowledge, so the person have a low moral reasoning. The metacognition action refers to control activities, including considering the right condition and rational on making decision, and also regulate and oversee learning that consists of planning and monitoring cognitive activity outcomes of those activities. And if the control cognitive activities we apply with a high moral reasoning, it could be uh, produce or effect on the right and good acts behavior, which is when a person have a control cognitive activities and have a right and have a well planning strategies on their own decision, so they can and also have a high moral reasoning. They tend to have the right and good acts of behavior. This is example of metacognition of moral decision. The guy was asked to provide quick, intuitive, or instinctive response to moral dilemmas or situation and indicate his feeling of rightness about his response. Then he was given extra time to rethink his response of change them if he wished. The feeling of rightness associated with the initial judgment was predictive of whether they choose to change their response and how long he spent rethinking them. Thus, one's metacognitive experience upon first coming out with moral judgment influence whether one should stick to the initial guide, feelings, or decide to put more thought into it and vice it. After the guy was asked to respond or give a response to a moral dilemmas and situation, they uh, they they need uh, they attend to think about their own planning and strategy on how to decide whether this kind of situation is good morality or moral or immoral moral acts or situation. So the rethinking is about the metacognition process that develop on the guy. The teacher's role in metacognition. The role of genetics appears to play in this area, which is the inherited genes are playing the main agents individual metacognition, and what teachers can do to promote this metacognitive and self-regulations. And of course, teachers have to remodeling or modeling thinking the strategies. We expect our students to use their learning and strategies on their cognition. Instead, just have to put strategies or give example of how to create strategies regarding regarding a certain situation, and also nurturing a calm and focus and emphasize an environment for in order for a student have a good metacognition. Of course, teachers have to nurture and give a good environment so that they can rethinking or create strategies for students making a good decision. And last is continuing to establish effective teacher students relation, and which is it can give it enhance and develop the learning journey, which is by development by the students development on a certain situation, and by remodeling the strategies it will make the um, students to establish the effective strategies or effective decisions. Next, metacognition for Islamic practice. Applying memorization strategies. Of course, employ particular strategy to complete the memorization task. For example, the reader memorize verse reciters tend to practice repetition, but when it comes to memorization of new verse, they also practice repetition while trying to learn the new meaning, which is if they are unable to identify the new verse, they create a strategies uh, to make a better understanding. So, okay, next is the next of ownership or principle of ownership. It's about testing knowledge on self-discovery. The cognitive strategies help students aware the skills and strategies they use in learning. Example, Shahada. While recite Shahada, Muslim aware and sincere of the recitments means that they're aware by aware, which is here means that uh, they create or develop the metacognition process by talking. Even they have to sorry, uh, they develop their own cognitive process, and at the same time they create strategies to to aware and have a well understanding of the verse. That's all. Okay, the conclusion must provide many and extensive freedom for children, especially at preschool and when they interact with the people around them, so that in the interaction with the society can increase their morality and social cognition, which is make children more intelligent to adapt their learning. Then they know what they do not yet know, and then also they can identify the skills needed and be able to optimize and prioritize the skill they have mastered. So that's all from us.
So now we are going to have Kahu.